For half a century, one port controlled the economic lifeline of an entire region. Every truck, every container, and every shipment flowing into the heart of East and Central Africa passed through Kenya. But now a new corridor is rising on the Indian Ocean coast, and Tanzania is attempting to rewrite the map of African trade. If you were a landlocked country like Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan, or the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya held the keys to your national economy. Mombasa was the primary gateway, the financial engine, and the undisputed logistics kingmaker of East Africa. When congestion paralyzed Mombasa, entire national economies felt the squeeze within days. Fuel prices spiked in Kampala, construction projects stalled in Kigali, and supply chains backed up all the way to the remote mineral fields of eastern Congo. Nairobi leveraged this strategic reality for decades, building its regional political influence around the sheer indispensability of its northern corridor. For a mining executive operating in southern Congo or an agricultural exporter in Zambia, the choice between two trade corridors is never just a theoretical distance on a map. It determines whether millions of dollars in raw copper cathodes or perishable crops reach international buyers on time, or sit idling at border crossings while storage penalties and demurrage fees compound by the hour. When these transit corridors slow down, the ultimate cost isn't absorbed by shipping conglomerates or government ministries. It is passed directly down to ordinary consumers paying higher prices at the market for imported fuel, grain, cooking oil, and fertilizer. Recognizing these massive economic stakes, Tanzania launched a systematic, multi-billion-dollar overhaul of its national trade network. Driven by direct state investment, private terminal concessions, and a clear geopolitical mandate, Tanzania is executing one of the most ambitious logistics transformations in modern African history. Tanzania's domestic push is part of a far broader, high-stakes competition over who controls the critical supply chains of the next industrial era. The global transition to renewable energy, electric mobility, and advanced electronics has touched off an unprecedented international scramble for critical raw materials, most notably copper, lithium, nickel, and cobalt. The highest concentrations of high-grade copper and cobalt on Earth sit right inside the Katanga region of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the neighboring Zambian copper belt. Extracting these vital minerals from the ground is only half the battle. The far greater operational challenge is transporting millions of tons of heavy, refined metal plates out of landlocked Africa to ocean ports thousands of kilometers away. This is no longer just an East African infrastructure race. Major global powers, from Chinese state enterprises undertaking the multi-billion-dollar rehabilitation of regional rail routes, to Gulf port operators and European shipping giants acquiring long-term terminal management concessions, recognize a clear strategic reality. Whoever controls the transit corridors out of Central Africa holds structural leverage over global industrial supply chains. Tanzania's central strategy revolves around three interconnected logistics pillars. First, the deepwater modernization of Dar es Salaam Port. Through extensive harbor dredging projects and private terminal management agreements with global operators like DP World, the port deepened its main shipping channels to accommodate massive, high-capacity container vessels while dramatically accelerating ship turnaround times. Second, the construction of a fully electrified standard-gauge railway network. Unlike legacy diesel lines, Tanzania's SGR is built specifically for heavy-haul freight operating at speeds up to 160 kilometers per hour. These high-speed electric trains can transport thousands of tons of bulk cargo from the coast directly into inland hubs like Dodoma and Tabora in a fraction of the time required by heavy long-haul trucks. And third, the revival of the historic 1,860-kilometer Tazara Railway, connecting Dar es Salaam directly to Zambia's industrial core, backed by a major $1.4 billion revitalization agreement involving Chinese state partners. Now, examine the pure physics of transport geometry. To move a shipping container from Mombasa Port to Kigali, Rwanda, cargo must travel approximately 1,700 kilometers along Kenya's northern corridor. To move that exact same container from Dar es Salaam Port along Tanzania's central corridor, the distance drops to roughly 1,300 kilometers. That 400-kilometer difference is monumental. In heavy industrial logistics, 400 kilometers translates directly into thousands of dollars saved per container on fuel consumption, vehicle wear and tear, insurance premiums, border clearance fees, and driver transit days. Multiply those savings across tens of thousands of commercial shipments every year, and the economic incentive for mining fleets, manufacturers, and logistics firms to switch export corridors becomes compelling. Yet, despite Tanzania's rapid progress, Kenya's logistical position remains formidable and deeply resilient. Kenya maintains structural advantages that cannot be easily displaced by laying new rail lines alone. Mombasa possesses a mature commercial ecosystem, a highly developed banking, customs brokerage, and maritime insurance network, and decades of entrenched relationships with global shipping alliances that favor its massive volume guarantees. Furthermore, Kenya's northern corridor remains the established primary route for landlocked markets like Uganda and South Sudan, nations whose trade routines rely heavily on Kenya's digital customs integrations and established highway networks. In direct response to Tanzania's expansion, Kenya has moved aggressively to defend its market share. Nairobi introduced targeted tariff reductions at Mombasa Port, automated its customs clearance protocols, and invested heavily in inland container depots to eliminate clearance bottlenecks. This regional logistics rivalry is far from a one-sided takeover. It is a dynamic, high-stakes competition between two distinct economic models: Kenya's mature, market-driven commercial ecosystem versus Tanzania's state-led, fully integrated infrastructure machine. At the same time, Tanzania's ambitious expansion faces real structural tests that will dictate its long-term success. The first critical vulnerability is power grid stability. Operating a high-speed, fully electrified national freight network requires an absolute guarantee of uninterrupted electrical supply. A single major blackout along the central corridor halts freight movement across the entire country, stranding millions of dollars in time-sensitive mineral exports and commercial cargo. The second challenge is debt servicing and capital recovery. Borrowing billions in foreign capital to construct cross-border rail extensions into neighboring states creates massive long-term financial obligations. If regional trade volumes fluctuate due to global commodity cycles or economic downturns, the financial pressure falls squarely on the national budget. And third, operating cross-border supply chains that feed into volatile transit zones like Eastern Congo requires constant political diplomacy, complex border coordination, and long-term security guarantees among neighboring governments. Despite these operational hurdles, the economic dynamic of East Africa has already shifted permanently. Tanzania is no longer operating in the background. It has built an infrastructure machine that forces every international shipping line, global mining conglomerate, and regional government to reevaluate how goods move across the African continent. The future of East African trade will not be decided by ports alone. It will be decided by who can build the fastest, cheapest, and most reliable connection between Africa's mineral wealth and the global economy. The Indian Ocean has become the new frontier of economic power, and Tanzania is determined to claim its place.